Hi, I'm Don, a technical architect at TSG. In this demo, I'll be showing how we can use HPI as a contract management solution. For this demo, I'm going to start out in Salesforce, where we have an opportunity here in the Opportunities tab. I'm going to go into Recent Opportunities, where we have this Burlington Textiles opportunity. From here, we have our basic opportunity detail, but you'll see here that we have a Create Contract button. When I click that, I have some data here that I can review, and if I am okay with this data, then I can click Yes, Send to Legal. This is sending information over to HPI so that when we create our contract, we don't have to manually key in all of our information later. So here I'll head into HPI, where I can log in as my user. And when we get to our dashboard, I can see under pending contracts here, we have a new contract for Burlington Textiles. When I click on that, we're brought to our contract folder. Here on the upper left-hand side, we have our basic vendor information. We have our vendor name, the vendor number, our status being pending contract generation, and our opportunity ID. The first thing we're going to want to do is actually create our contract. So if I go down here to Create Wizard Form, I'm prompted with some options for different contracts we can create. We're going to create a Master Services Agreement today, and then I'll just give this a quick name. And then we're launched into our Active Wizard product. Here you can see the information that was sent over from Salesforce, so we don't have to key that all in manually, and we can keep everything closer in sync. But we can also add in fill in some data manually if we want to. So here's the effective date that didn't come over from Salesforce, and we can just set that to November 30th. And then we have a couple questions here. Has an NDA been executed with this company? If we select no, and then select next, we're brought to a stop page. And this says that we cannot create this MSA without a signed NDA. If we go back and click yes to this, then when we click next, we're brought to a prompt to actually upload that NDA file. So here I can just click and drag the NDA into this interface, and it will be uploaded as a supporting document of this form. Next we have the date of the non-disclosure agreement, where I can just manually fill that out, which will be November 1st. And when I click next, we're brought to our contractor contact page. Again, this is some information that was pulled over from Salesforce, but I can still add some data manually if I have it. Next, we're brought to our insurance clause library. Here is where we can choose to include clauses if we would like to have them in our contract, and if we select no, they will not be included in the contract. So first we have a clause if the contractor will be handling hazardous substances, so we'll click yes for that. And then another question, if the contractor will have access to production systems, we can click yes for that as well. And we'll see later on that clicking yes for this question drives part of the workflow that this form will go through. When we select next, we're brought to our routing information page where we can manually select our manager. And we have another routing question, will the anticipated amount of invoices expected to be received from this vendor exceed $100,000 in this fiscal year? If we select yes, we'll have another approver that's added to this form's workflow, and if not, then they will be left off. When we select next, we're brought to the summary page. This just gives us a quick view of all the information we filled out, along with the information that was pulled in from Salesforce. So we just make sure that everything is correct before we submit this form. When we select next, we're brought to our workflow summary page, where we can see that we have 3 tasks. The first is the production system access task. This is included because I selected yes that the contractor will have access to production systems. The second is the invoices for this year being over $100,000. And then the third is the manager that we manually selected. To show how this is dynamically generated from how we answer questions on the form, I can click back and then go to the routing information page and say that we will not have more than $100,000 this year. And then when I go through to the workflow summary again, you can see that our tasks have been brought down to 2. So we only have the production system access and the manually selected approver. When I click Finish, here we have a quick view to our PDF version of the questions we just answered. And now I can actually create our contract from the information we filled out. So I'll use this document action, Generate Contract, and this will use our integration with HotDocs to go out to the HotDocs server and bring back a contract based on the template that we already set up. So in the background, this is creating a 0.1 version, which is the template itself, and the 0.2 is the filled out version of the contract. Here I can use our dual pane view to look at the information we filled out along with the filled out contract side by side. Or if I click directly on the contract, I can view it larger here. Here's also where I can show our integration with Workshare Compare. If I click on this View Versions, I can take a look at what the differences between the 0.1 and 0.2 version are. Here we have a nice redline version of all the differences between these two versions. So we'll see the red is everything that was removed, which is the placeholders for the information we filled out, and the blue is everything that we input into the form. Another thing that we can see here is that the status has changed to pending internal approval on our form. This was also relayed back to Salesforce. So when we go to Salesforce and we refresh our page, we'll see this pending internal approval contract status updated as well. Now we can actually submit our form for internal approval. So if I jump back to the form here, I can click this Start Approval Workflow, which will send the form to those 2 users that we saw in our workflow summary when we were finishing the form. We can view the status along the way as we go through the approval by using this View Wizard Workflow Status. So we can see that right now we are waiting for Don Hartman to approve this form. So here we can see that we're waiting on Don Hartman to complete this wizard approval, so we can go ahead and approve it right now. So we'll just select Approve and fill out the username and password. So then when we go and view the wizard workflow status again, we can see that Don Hartman is approved, and we're now waiting on Dwight Schrute. So here I can sign out, and we'll sign in as Dwight's user so I can finish the approval. And in our inbox here, we have the form that we need to approve. So I can click on that, click on the Complete Wizard Approval Form button, and we can approve this from Dwight's user as well. So now that our form is approved, we can head back to My User. And then we can head back into our form and see that it's now approved. And when we go in and look at the contract document, we can see that our status has updated to internally approved. Again, this is sent back to Salesforce so that the sales team is always kept in the loop. So we can see here the contract status is set to internally approved as well. So now that our contract is internally approved, it's time to send it off to the client. So I can use the Send Email Doc action to just send it straight from HPI. We'll fill out the to, the subject, and then write a quick body to the email. And then click Send Email. So So now at some point, we've received the email back from the client, so we have the updated contract with some track changes. So we can just go ahead and upload that new version we got from them. Again, we can just click and drag that right into our screen here, and then we'll select minor version. And here's where we can go ahead and use our edit online action to accept the changes and make sure that everything else looks good in the contract. Here we can use the edit online action to edit this document directly in Word, and so we don't have to download this document to our desktop. So here I'll just select OK and fill out my username and password. And then we can make our changes in Word. So if we go to the Review tab and look for the next track changes, we can see that they changed $5 million to $3 million. I'm okay with that, so I'll accept all of these changes. We're done there. So I can save, and that means this version of the contract is being uploaded right back into the repository. And we can go ahead and see those changes by using our View Versions integration with Workshare Compare again. So here I'll select our most recent version with the 1.0 version that we sent over to them. So now we can scroll down to where our changes are. Here we see what we were expecting, this changing $5 million to $3 million, but we also see that they had track changes off for removing another clause. So we can have some conversation about that. But whenever we're done and we're happy with this state of the contract, then we can use our send to DocuSign action to send this document, this contract, for an e-signature using DocuSign. So I just fill out my email address there, click the send to DocuSign button, and then this sends an email to the user that we just input. So here I can open up that email and launch us into DocuSign. When I select continue, we can click on the tab. It brings us right down to where we need to sign. I can sign it there and click finish. And now we have a job running in the background. So whenever we refresh this page, we can see that our contract has been replaced and versioned with the DocuSign version of this contract. So now we have our signed version of this contract. I can scroll down to see the signature. And we can also see that our status has changed to DocuSign complete. When we head back to Salesforce and refresh there, we can see that again, the status has been pushed back to DocuSign, or back to Salesforce. So we have DocuSign complete here as the contract status. When we scroll down, we can see that the contract itself has actually been pushed back to Salesforce as well. So we can go ahead and view that. And again, we see our DocuSigned contract. So now that we've completed this contract, I want to show one more way that we can import a contract into HPI. So if I head back to HPI here, I can use this create new folder action to create a new vendor contract folder. So here I'll just input the name, the vendor number, and a status, which we're going to set to pending internal approval. So when I create that folder, I'm immediately launched into it. So now I can just select the Add Documents action. Then I can click and drag my contract into this screen and then hit the Index button. And this will launch us into our index mode. After this is set up, I can scroll down to some data here and then select vendor name, and then on the right hand side just select what I want to populate that field, and it moves over to the metadata here. This is an easy way for us to capture some clauses that may have been different in this contract. So if I scroll down to some clauses, again, I can just highlight that on the right, and that will pop into each one of these fields. That's all for this contract management demo. If you have any questions, please go to tsgrp.com. Thank you.